I have always enjoyed Father's Day. It was the one day of the year where I could escape from the world with Dad, and we could just be. This year, Dad chose a camping site near the lake so we could go fishing. At 15, I complained, but I was pumped to go. When we got to the campsite, it was magnificent. Tall pine trees, a glassy lake, and that refreshing smell of nature. But we weren't alone. Close to our campsite was a set of two men who had set up camp. They didn't seem like the normal camping type, grimy, loud, and were constantly looking in our direction. I saw Dad's jaw get tighter and tighter every time they would laugh too loud, or even if they overstayed their gaze and looked for a little too long. After a certain time, Dad got up and said, "Let's go find a better spot." I could feel the concern in his voice, so I didn't argue. We packed up and moved to a different spot. It was closer to the highway, so we could still hear the echoes of truck horns coming from a distance. I kind of hated the spot, as I wanted to go to a more secluded one. But now, when I think about that day, I realize Dad had good reasons to choose it. After the sun dipped below the giant trees, Dad and I roasted marshmallows while laughing at his terrible ghost stories. We were enjoying the moment as Dad went on to tell childhood memories of me. I was laughing a lot when suddenly my dad raised his hand and gestured me to stop. His eyes looked all alert. His smile disappeared in seconds. He whispered to me, "Naomi, I want you to hide under the car." I was stunned to hear such a bizarre request. I looked at him, confused, and asked,
"What? Why would I?"
My dad cut me off, saying, "No arguments. Just do as I say." I got up and started walking to our car. It was parked under this big tree in darkness. I slid under the car and began hearing footsteps coming closer. A few minutes later, I saw two pairs of boots walking closer to my dad. I had no doubts it was those two freaks from earlier. I stayed quiet and watched. One of them waved to my dad and said, "Having fun?" My dad nodded with a casual smirk and asked, "You guys need something?" The other guy responded with a creepy chuckle.
No, just came to chill with you guys. Where's your daughter?
I could see both of their eyes scanning our campsite like hawks. My dad sat down near the fire, maintaining a very calm demeanor. Nudging the hot, burning coals into the fire with a campfire poker, my dad responded, "She went out for a fishing. It'll be great if you guys leave." The two guys exchanged a weird look. Then one of them started walking towards our car. My heart hammered in my chest as I noticed a pair of boots coming towards me. My dad got up, still holding the poker in one hand, and yelled, "Didn't I tell you to leave?" The other guy, who was closer to him, responded, "He's just gonna take a pee. Don't worry, unless you have something valuable in your car." Saying this, he cracked an annoying laugh. The other guy stopped a few inches away from our car and aimed at a bush. I could hear him humming while he released himself. Deep down, I understood why Dad wanted me to hide under the car and not inside. The guy's probably checking the car right now, trying to figure out if I'm in it. I stayed calm, kept my breathing normal. Once done, he went back to my dad. Both of the jerks wished him good night and started walking away. I was smart enough to know that it'd be best to wait, then go back to my dad, because those freaks might keep an eye on us from far away. In the next 5 minutes, I watched my dad work in winks. He got all of our things except the tent. He didn't care for the tent. Loaded everything in our car, and as soon as he unlocked the car door, I hopped into the passenger seat. Dad made a call to the nearest police station and told them about two guys following us. We didn't go home from the campsite. We went straight to the police station. My dad was right. Those two jerks did follow us, only they didn't know my dad is way smarter than them. The moment their car came close to the police station, a cop car blocked their way. They were taken into custody for following us and stalking a minor. My dad didn't even flinch when the cops asked him if they were the guys from the campsite. He looked them in the eyes and said, You're lucky I brought you to the cops instead of leaving your lifeless bodies buried in those woods. I try to be as fearless as my dad. And to all the campers and wilderness lover out there, always follow your instincts in the wild.
Come on, the after parties are even more fun.
When Hazel begged me to go with her, I couldn't say no. It's college, after all. The seniors poured shots like water. Some cute boys even flirted with me. The after party continued till 2 a.m. in the morning. Hazel wanted me to stay back, but I slept better in my own bed. Also, my dorm was just 2 blocks away. The weather was a little cold, and a thin layer of fog covered the streets in fragments. I was stumbling a little for obvious reasons, but not totally out. I knew I'd have to walk back, so I didn't go overboard with the booze. A big owl hooted from a nearby tree, letting me know that I'm not the only one in these empty streets. I told myself the night wasn't creepy, just quiet. That was until I rounded the block. Under the yellow glow of a flickering streetlight, I saw a woman. She was crouched low to the ground, her hands pressed on the concrete like she was mimicking a dog. At first glance, I thought she was just some homeless person scavenging for scraps, but her sudden, jerky movements felt like a calm before the storm. As I got closer, I slowed down. Something was off. A reeking odor was floating in the air. I rubbed my eyes to see it more clearly, and I did. A mangled lump of fur and flesh was lying in front of her, which seemed like roadkill. Probably a raccoon or a cat. Hard to tell, really. She wasn't picking up trash. She was eating it. Tearing chunks of meat with her bony fingers and then shoving them into her mouth like she hadn't eaten for days. The wet slurping sounds hit me before the sight fully registered. Strings of meat hung from her lips as she chewed, lips glistening with blood. Her fingers dug into the carcass like claws. She was so busy with her feast that she didn't even see me. Now, I wasn't drunk anymore. All my blurry vision, stumbling body movement disappeared in a second. The best thing I can do right now is change sides and quietly walk as far as possible from this woman. So, I slowly crossed the road, my eyes fixed on her. In case she sees me and chases me, I'll start running. But luckily, she didn't. I took off my heels so I could walk as silently as possible. My eyes are still on her, my heart hammered in my chest. I'd never felt so scared before. It was like straight out of a horror movie. I was praying to God that she wouldn't notice me, but suddenly, an owl flew over my head from a nearby tree and I ended up screaming in shock. Ah! My blood froze, realizing what a grave mistake I just made. I slowly looked at the streetlight where I saw her, and now she was looking at me, a chunk of flesh still hanging from her mouth as she shot her death stare. I started backing away without turning my eyes from her. She watched for a few seconds that felt like eternity, then slowly stood up. Her claw-like hands were dripping with blood. Her stringy hair made her appear even more scary. She tilted her head to her left and then screamed. She screamed just like me, as if it were a taunt. I started running after that. My breathing got heavier, and the booze in my stomach was trying hard to stay in. I was panting and gasping for air, but I knew I couldn't stop. Not now. Not until I reached my dorm. I looked back and saw the woman had crossed the road already and was now sprinting at me. She was cackling like a coyote with her hands stretched at me. I didn't know why she was running like that, but I felt she wanted to eat my flesh as well. I ran and ran until I couldn't anymore. I fell on the ground, but again got up. I have never felt fear up so close. My body was on the verge of collapsing. I stumbled one last time on the ground and immediately turned back to see her inches away from me. I stopped and screamed.
What do you want?
She stopped as well. She looked me up and down, then laughed. Her laughter was darker than the darkest night. Using her sharp nails, she picked something from her stained, bloody teeth and flicked it at me. I collapsed on the sidewalk. She clapped at me like my misery was amusing to her. She then turned back and, hopping like a 9-year-old girl, disappeared into the night. I woke up with a high fever in my dorm. The memories of picking myself up from that sidewalk and walking back to my dorm will always be a blur to me. I'm just happy that I'm alive. I don't go out alone after dark till today. If I go to a party, I stay back if it gets too late. I would never want to meet that woman, ever again. As a night owl, I prefer working out late. The workout and slow hiss of machines, low thumps of people softly running on mats helps me clear my head. It's my kind of peace. So naturally, I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary when I walked into my gym at 9 p.m. that Friday. I started with weights, worked through my normal circuit, and then returned to the heavy bag in the back corner. That's when I noticed him. Lanky, pale, somewhere in his mid-30s. I had seen him around, mostly standing too close, perched on machines he never used. An observer. He slipped in quietly and made a beeline for the calf raise machine, which also happened to face the heavy bag. I watched him rearrange the seat and balance his phone between his legs, camera pointing directly at me. I stopped mid-round, sweat trickling down my back. I pulled off one glove and walked over.
Hey, are you recording me?
He didn't respond. He tapped the screen of his phone, shoved the device into his pocket, and sprinted across the gym. I watched him running away upstairs. What should I do? Go to the front desk? What do I have? My skin was still crawling from his stare when I left my session. After 1 hour, I walked outside into sharp, still air. I thought I was done with him. Wrong. There he was, standing at the curb, looking like he was waiting for a cab. And waiting for me. I didn't look at him. I just kept walking. But after a few blocks, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, and he was still there. I quickened my pace. He picked up his pace. I cut across 2 blocks and ducked into a flower shop, the only store still open. I put my head down behind a row of peonies and wrapped roses, and tried to slow my breathing. He walked inside. He paused at the door, checking the place out. He took a couple of steps toward the counter, like he was thinking about just browsing. I slipped out quickly, heart racing. It didn't stop until I got back to my apartment. I was sitting on the couch in sweaty clothes, catching my breath. I should have called somebody. The police? The gym? But what would I say? Then I realized I have left my wallet in the locker. My ID's in it. I knew I had to go back to get it. I took some pepper spray this time for just in case. The gym was almost empty. I scanned the gym again. I didn't see him. I let out a deep breath and headed towards the lockers. A breath of relief washed over me once I found my wallet just where I kept it. I was glad he didn't try to steal it, because identity theft could have created more troubles for me, and people like him are capable of all the awful things. I trudged back through the weight room. You never know. And that's when I saw him again. This time reflected in the mirror, right behind me. He smiled. "Hey," he said again. "You work out a lot." I didn't say anything. I just kept my angry face on. It was Christian, the guy I hated from last week, and he couldn't tell I was annoyed. "You're intense. I like that." Getting scared will give him power, so I kept my voice loud and clear.
Why are you following me?
His smile was stuck on his face.
I'm not. We just keep ending up in the same place. Isn't that magical?
My heart was pounding.
No, nothing about stalking is magical.
He tilted his head.
Pretty girls like you live for this kind of attention, right?
I was shocked to hear how delusional this guy was. I clenched my keys between my fingers like claws.
Back off.
He stared for a moment with blank eyes.
Okay, but I'll see you around, Maple.
And he turned and walked out like it was just another night. I felt frozen. How did he know my name? That was it. I marched to the front desk, canceled my membership, and walked out without looking back. By midnight, I had signed up at a different gym across town, only during the day. Crowded, well-lit, safe. Some people would say,
Speak up. Report him. Don't be a victim.
But those people are not walking home alone at night. Those people have not been followed, watched, or filmed. So yes, I did what I had to do. I survived. And if you're reading this, be careful. Watch your back, because creeps do not always hide. Sometimes they smile. I personally felt weird about clowns, but dressing up a Ronald McDonald's paid me well. Handling fake smiles and balloons all day to the kids, I barely got time to sit or even go to the washroom that night. So, when it was just 10 minutes before closing, and the restaurant had emptied, I quickly rushed to release myself. Once I came back, the cashier told me a woman was looking for me. I thought it would be just another parent waiting to pose their kid with a hideous-looking clown. I asked the cashier where the woman they pointing at the exit. A frail, middle-aged woman was standing outside the McDonald's. She was looking at the sky with a smile on her face. I walked up to her and asked, ma'am, you were looking for me? She slowly looked down, and we made eye contact. In that very moment, a rush of discomfort flowed down my spine. I don't know why, but the woman's stare gave me the creeps. She blinked twice, then said,
My son. He wanted a photo with you. He just loves Ronald.
I looked around awkwardly, smiling. So where is he? She thought for a second, then asked,
Who?
Your son, ma'am. A pale sadness dawned at her.
He's sick. Can you come with me? He's waiting for you.
I felt bad for judging her too quick. Poor woman must have left the sick kid at home, promising a picture with me. Seeing me quiet, she spoke again.
I'll pay you if you see my son and click a photo with him.
Any other time I would have done this for free, but at that moment I too needed the money bad, so I happily agreed. I went back into the McDonald's, got my money from the manager, and started following the woman to her house. On the way, I thought she would explain what's going on with her son, but surprisingly, the entire time, she didn't even mention the kid once. She just kept walking ahead of me, quietly. I guess she was already worried about her life, so I didn't bother with any more questions either. As we walked, houses passed us. Streets that led to those houses went away, but we didn't stop. I wanted to ask her where we were going, but again, I hesitated. After walking for 15 minutes straight, we left the suburbs and got onto a narrow, dusty road. I was getting really confused, so finally I asked her, How far is your house? She stopped suddenly, turned back, and looked at me like I had said something stupid.
Why would I take you to my house?
She said with confusion on her face. To see your kid? You said your son... She didn't let me finish.
Oh no, my son is not at home. He is waiting for us at the cemetery.
The nonchalant tone of her voice sent a shiver down my spine. What the hell is going on? Where is she taking me? I asked her why her son is at the cemetery, but she didn't reply anymore, just kept walking. A hint of shady business alerted my mind, but then I thought, I'm 6 foot tall, weighing 170 pounds. On the other hand, this woman is thin as a twig. What harm could she do me? Also, she said she's going to pay, so let's see what she's up to. We did stop outside a cemetery. Pushing the rusty, creaking gate, she took me to a child's grave. That's when the truth hit me. Her son is already dead. Pointing at an epitaph that read, Our beloved Michael sleeps here in peace.
Go ahead. Tell him a joke. He will laugh.
Her wide, with doll-like eyes fixed on me, was waiting for me to follow her instructions. No matter how creepy it was, I could fathom the underlying grief in her stare. I played along, not for the money, rather to provide some comfort to this mother grieving for her lost child. I told a lame joke, and for a second, the silence of the graveyard prevailed. And then I heard a chuckle of a child. It's right to say I was on the verge of having a heart attack when I heard the chuckle again. But then realized it was her. Eyeing at the grave, the woman was laughing like a kid. This continued for probably a few seconds, but it felt like eternity. Standing in a graveyard with a deranged woman in front of her child's grave, there I was. Creepy-ass Ronald McDonald felt less scary at that moment. I couldn't play along anymore. I turned around and started walking. I didn't run, because if that woman chased me, I definitely would have had a heart attack. I walked faster and faster. She screamed from behind.
Wait! Michael wants a picture with you! Wait!
I could see her following me, but she was physically weak, hence couldn't match my pace. She kept pleading with me to come back, but I didn't. That was the last time I took the gig to dress as Ronald. I feared the woman would come again the next day, asking me to go back to the grave of her dead son because every kid wanted to click picture with Ronald McDonald's. I've been teaching yoga for more than 10 years, which is long enough to see the different types of students. The mindful regulars, the fitness fanatics, the spiritual seekers, and even the ones who don't come for yoga at all. This happened last week in one of my morning sessions. I welcomed my new group of students while leading them to their mats. But when I looked around the room, I paused for a second. One of my regulars was back, and it worried me. He was a man in his late 40s, and he always sat in the front row. He had thick eyebrows, grayish hair, and eyes that never blinked. For the past few weeks, he had been coming to my classes. He had never missed a single one of them. He avoided interacting with anyone. He just unrolled his mat, sat down in the front row, and stared at me the whole time. He focused not on the poses or his breathing, but on me. At first, I used to tell myself I was being too paranoid. He might have just been one of those people who really care about yoga. But slowly, I realized that that wasn't the case. I started the session, and I could feel his gaze moving over me like a spotlight. From doing the downward dog to the warrior poses, his eyes never left me, even for a second. I was feeling awful and disgusted by his behavior, but still made it through the session. I didn't want to make a scene or go overboard, but after the class was over and everyone was leaving, I went straight to the studio manager. I pointed at him without him noticing and said,
Do you see that guy walking out? The one in the gray shirt. He has been acting strangely for the past few days. His constant watching during my sessions makes me feel very uncomfortable.
The manager's smile went away. He carefully noticed the man and said, We'll talk to him next time, I promise. I nodded in relief and thanked him. The sun was already starting to set when I left the studio. I had parked my car next to the fence on the side lot. I was halfway there, getting my keys out of my bag, when I heard someone behind me. I turned around, and my stomach dropped. It was that creepy yoga student again. Hi, Ava, he said, his voice too soft, yet full of menace. You always look so calm when you teach. I didn't say anything. I went to the driver's side, but he stepped in front of me and blocked the door. He leaned in and said, I think we have a connection. Every time I see you, I feel close to you. When you talk in class, it feels like you're only talking to me. The way he spoke with a grin and twitching eyes hinted he's a complete psycho. I still kept my calm and said strictly,
I have no interest in you, so move away, right now.
His smile contorted into hate.
You don't mean that. You have always been looking at me.
I was stunned to hear his level of delusion.
No, I haven't. Step back.
He didn't. Instead, he moved closer to me. His clothes smelled like sour sweat. I gripped my keys harder. He reached out, as if he were going to touch my shoulder, and that's when I saw headlights across the parking lot. A different car was coming in. Taking this opportunity of not being alone anymore in the parking lot with this creep, I started yelling. Not a polite little scream. A scream that came from deep inside me and sounded like a survival instinct. The man's eyes got bigger. He slowly stepped back, saying, Stop screaming! You're gonna make me look like a bad guy! But I didn't stop. He sprinted as soon as the person in the other car parked and ran over to me. "Are you all right?" I shook my head and nodded.
Call the police.
The police got there after the man had left, but the studio had records. It was easy for them to find him. He was kicked out right away. I even filed a restraining order because I don't believe in second chances. I still teach. I still help people with breathwork, balance, and finding inner peace. However, I now always lock the doors of my car. I park close to the entrance. Before every class, I look at the front row, and sometimes I jump when I feel someone's eyes on me for too long. People think you're safe when you're a yoga teacher. You're in a peaceful place and everything is calm. But the truth is, predators don't always hang out in dark alleys. Sometimes they're sitting cross-legged in the front row with their hands in prayer, watching and waiting. Father's Day always hits hard for me. Social media is crowded with perfect family pictures and people honoring the memories I'm jealous of and can't relate to. For me, it's always been just Dad and me, and it still is. He's 65 now and lives in Pinewood Care Home, with dementia pulling at the edges of his mind. Some days, he remembers me. Other days, he's just a polite stranger in a suit. On Father's Day, I drove to the care home to pick him up. The care home staff were helping Dad to get in the car when Nurse Ira came to me.
Clara, you should know your father's daily routines have altered since he got diagnosed with dementia. Often at night he wakes up and,
I frowned and asked,
And?
as if she covered some hidden truth. Nurse Ira replied,
I would suggest you take one of our helpers with you. It's a free service, and handling a patient alone.
I didn't let her finish.
The patient is my dad, and no thanks. I can take care of him for the next 48 hours. After all, how hard can it be?
Saying this, I got into the car with my dad, buckled up right beside me. I looked at Nurse Ira one last time, and she smiled awkwardly. The drive home was calm. Dad was staring at the streets with his curious eyes. After a long time, he had stepped outside the care home. When we reached my apartment, I took him to the guest room, which I decorated with a flower vase and fresh linens on the bed just for him. He sat down on the bed, looked at the ceiling, and then said, "Clara, I'm hungry." Tears of joy rolled down my cheek. It's been a while since my dad called me by my name. I rushed to the kitchen and made sandwiches for both of us. The next few hours went like a dream. We both ate together, laughed, and recalled some distant memories from my childhood. It was great to see Dad being Dad. After dinner, I asked him if he would like to watch a movie, and he agreed. We both lay down on the couch in the living room and began watching The Lion King. Well, I was watching Dad, how his face changed in excitement seeing the movie. I guess I was quite tired, hence I don't remember falling asleep. I woke up with a weird silence. The movie has ended. The screen has paused in the credits. I looked beside me, and my dad wasn't there. My heart skipped a beat. I called out.
Dad? Dad?
My apartment was in complete silence. I got up from the couch to look for him. Next to the living room, there's a dimly lit corridor. My bedroom is at the end of it. I stood in front of the corridor. My back was facing the other end of it. I called out again.
Dad? Where are you?
Just then, I felt someone run behind me, chuckling. Turning back, I saw no one. I switched on the corridor light and found my bedroom door half ajar. I tiptoed to the bedroom, trying not to spook Dad if he's inside. But as I stepped in, I was left dumbfounded and horrified at the same time. My dad has opened the big window of my room. Half of his body was already out as he leaned down, looking at the streets. My voice shook as I called out to him this time.
Dad? You need to step back.
He slowly rotated his head to look my way. His face was different. He didn't look like my dad at all. A scary smile was spread across his face, and his eyes were bloodshot. "You should jump," he said in a chilling voice. Terror numbed my veins.
What? What are you saying, Dad?
Tears welled up in my eyes. He then backed up and started walking towards me. He was walking slowly, like a baby trying to learn how to walk. You should jump. I can push you. He chuckled. I don't know why I was stepping back, because it was my dad having the worst episode, but I was horrified to witness it. I understood why Nurse Ira warned me in the morning. My phone was thankfully in my pocket. I took it out and dialed the care home. Once I informed them to come to my address, my dad stopped. His face changed from smiling to hatred. You want to send me back to that cage? He screamed, and then started bashing his head on the wall. I watched in horror as he screamed and continued this madness. My body froze in trauma. I couldn't move until the blood rushed in. That's when it hit me. My dad's not well. He'll never be. I sprinted at him and grabbed by the shoulders. Thankfully, I was stronger than him. I pulled him away, and he fainted. When the caregivers took him into the ambulance, I was crying like a 9-year-old standing on the sidewalk. Nurse Ira hugged me, and I cried even more. The worst feeling in the world is to see your loved ones on the decline. I don't think I'll ever feel excited about Father's Day again. I arrived at elevation on a crisp morning, the air thin and cool at the top of the mountain. The retreat was serene, eerily so, nestled far away from the world, as if it were built to be isolated, far from prying eyes. A perfect escape, I thought, when the trolling on my body-positive posts had gotten unbearable. I was Margot, the influencer who preached self-love. Yet here I was, standing at the gates of a place promising to change my life. A week of transformation, they said. It sounded too good to be true, but I had to try. It was remote, sterile, like a luxury asylum. The staff, all in white uniforms, greeted me with bland smiles, and I was assigned a number, no name. That felt wrong, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was what I had been looking for. On my first day, I met the others, a group of plus-sized influencers, all struggling with the same thing: image, weight, public expectations. There was Kira, a sweet and anxious woman who couldn't seem to relax, and then there was Tanya, who kept a forced smile on her face as if she were afraid of being outed. We were all here for the same thing, an intense program of fasting, mindfulness, and metabolic conditioning. The food was tasteless protein bars, and the water was metallic, leaving a strange aftertaste. The worst part? We were under surveillance at all times, for our safety, they said. I shrugged off the unease. This was what I had come for, right? I posted my selfies to maintain the same inspiring image for my fans. I wrote under photo, Day 3 at elevation, detoxing like crazy, #transformation journey. But it wasn't long before I started noticing the cracks, the strange behavior of the staff, the cold, clinical atmosphere. Kira pulled me aside one night after dinner, her eyes wide with fear.
People have been disappearing. Did you notice?
She whispered. I laughed it off, saying,
They're sent home early. The ones who can't hit their weight loss milestones.
The next morning, I saw a woman crying during a weigh-in, her face twisted in despair. The following day, her room was scrubbed clean, as if she had never been there. The unease grew in my chest. The nights became worse. Every morning, I woke up groggy, dizzy as if I hadn't slept at all. One day, I found a needle mark on my arm, hidden beneath the sleeve of my pajamas. I asked the staff, but they brushed it off as a routine hydration support. Something wasn't right, and my instincts screamed at me to leave, but I didn't know how. One night, during curfew, I hid in a cleaning closet, desperate for answers. I watched 2 staff members unload boxes labeled Protein Supply, Human Flavor. The logo matched the retreat's private brand of protein bars. I felt my stomach twist, the realization hitting me like a wave. Are they feeding us protein bars made of human meat? The next night, I broke into a locked storage room with Kira. What we found chilled me to my core. Sealed packages of protein bars, each labeled with a batch code and a photo ID attached. One of the photos was of the woman who had cried during the weigh-in. She was gone, processed into a bar. Kira screamed, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the photos. We were being used. The ones who failed weren't really sent home. They were killed, rendered, processed into the very bars we were eating. Before we could escape, we were caught. Dr. Rains, the founder of Elevation, emerged from the shadows. He was gaunt, his body a stark contrast to the morbidly obese man he once was. His eyes gleamed with something twisted and sinister. "Fat is the disease," he said, his voice cold and calm. "You influencers spread it, but now you nourish change." He didn't need to say more. I knew what was coming next. I woke up to the sound of humming machines, my body heavy and unresponsive. Kira lay unconscious beside me. I realized we were drugged, but maybe I was too fat to go down with one dose. My mind started racing. I took a quick scan of the room and realized it's set up like a surgery cabin. All the medical instruments were lying on the table right beside the bed. As one of the handlers walked past, I grabbed a scalpel from and hurriedly stabbed him in the neck. Blood sprayed all over my face and body, but I didn't have time to think. I dragged Kira with me through the dark halls, the sounds of alarms blaring in the distance. We made it to the exit somehow, barefoot, terrified but free. I didn't stop running until I reached the road. A week later, I was back online, hailed as a survivor. I couldn't talk about what had happened, not without risking my life. But the NDAs and mental trauma excuse worked perfectly. My follower count skyrocketed, and Elevation's protein bars flew off the shelves, selling out nationwide. But something was off, or maybe I'm just overthinking. Looking back, I shouldn't have said yes to that after party. It was just another Friday night. Many people crammed into Jamie's garage with loud music, cheap booze, and dumb games. We were riding that post-high school senior year feeling where every night felt legendary. Then, somewhere between bad beer and worse choices, Jamie said, "Dude, let's keep this going. Your parents are gone, right?" And before I knew it, my house was officially After Party 2.0. It wasn't a big deal. My parents were out for the weekend, and the only other person in the house was my baby sister, Ruthie. She was 7. I figured she was asleep by now. Everyone promised they'd stay in the basement and lie low. What could go wrong? By 11, half of the senior class was in my basement. Music was down low, drinks were flowing, and some sounded like they were even laughing. Somewhere in there was Fred. Now, Fred wasn't what you would call a regular at parties. He was kind of a loner, always a little quiet and always straggling along the edge of conversations like he was just grateful to be invited. I didn't even remember inviting him, but there he was. Pale, greasy-haired Fred, clenching a solo cup like it was saving his life. No one cared when he suddenly said, "I gotta go. Something came up." No one thought much of it, but once he left, Jamie asked, "Who invited Fred?" Everyone exchanged looks. "That guy's such a creep," Mark added, shivering dramatically. "He probably just followed the crowd here." We laughed it off. The music got turned back on, and in no time, Fred was a distant memory. At least, that's what I thought. About half an hour later, I headed up the stairs to get some more beers from the kitchen when I saw Ruthie standing on the stairs. Her little fists white-knuckled on the railing, and her eyes were big with fear. "Ruth, why are you up? It's late."
"There's a monster in my closet,"
she whispered. I chuckled. "A monster, huh? You know those aren't real, right?" But she didn't laugh. She looked like she was going to cry. Okay, I sighed. "Let's go check it out. Brave Knight Kenneth is going to slay the closet monster." She held my hand all the way back to her room. The hallway felt weirdly cold. Must have been my imagination. When we got to her door, she froze.
"In there,"
she said, pointing to the closet. I rolled my eyes, attempting to keep things light. "All right, here we go. No such..." I opened the closet door. Ruthie screamed, and my blood turned to ice. Crouched amidst Ruthie's stuffed animals, clutching an underwear in his sweaty fist, Fred was sitting there. His eyes were wide, feral, like a cornered rat. "What the hell, Fred?" Footsteps hammered up the stairs. My friends poured down the hallway, breathless. Then they saw him. Jamie's face turned to disgust. Mark looked like he was about to puke. Fred didn't move. We pulled him out of the closet with Ruthie crying behind me. My hands were trembling with rage. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to take his face and put it in the mud until I took his sick little smirk away. But I didn't. We called the cops. I think Fred never even left the party. He just snuck upstairs to Ruthie's room. God knows what would have happened if she hadn't woken up. The cops cuffed him in my living room. They gave me the whole speech about being good for calling us, but I wasn't listening to them. I couldn't stop looking at Ruthie, holding Mom's old teddy bear, her eyes swollen from crying. Later on, one of the officers pulled me aside and told me that I was lucky to let anybody into our house. I called Mom and Dad and told them all about it. It didn't matter what they said to me because internally I was screaming at myself for not catching this sooner, for not getting Fred kicked out earlier, for even allowing that to happen to my little sister Ruthie. I should have hit him. I should have done something. That night changed everything. Ruthie did not sleep in her bedroom for weeks. But the worst part? Sometimes, even now, I can see Ruthie staring at her closet before bed, as if she's still waiting for the monster to come back. I've never thrown another house party again since that night, and if some creepy loner ever tries to invite himself again, he won't even make it to my front door. I'd been working in shipping for quite some time. Driving through dark, sketchy roads and stopping in the middle of nowhere to check tires had become my usual. On one side of the highway, I often witnessed the Canadian Rockies, standing like towering giants. I'd driven this stretch 100 times before, but that night seemed weird. It felt too quiet, like the road ahead held a bad omen. I passed a small town whose name I had forgotten, with my caffeine-dead mind and bladder full. I had missed the last rest stop altogether, oblivious that I was not using the last mile marker. And I couldn't wait another 30 miles, so I pulled over. Opening the door, I stepped out and took a long stretch. My back was killing me. I walked to the tree line to release myself. The black silhouettes of pine trees were moving in the cool wind. They were so dense that pitch black rested in the backdrop. Once done, I reached into my pocket and grabbed a cigarette. I lit it and took a couple of slow drags to calm down. As I stood there, my eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness surrounding me. I saw a sudden shift in movement behind the trees. At first, I thought it was a deer. The way it sprinted through the trees felt odd. I'd never seen a deer move like that before. Another figure slowly started to emerge from the darkness. A man, seemingly in his 30s, maybe older. He was tall, dressed in jeans and a hooded jacket, but it was hard to tell. The darkness was playing tricks on my eyes, making his movements strange and jerky. My gut twisted. There wasn't another soul on this highway. No parked cars and no cabins nearby. Just me, my medium-duty truck, and now him. I kept it casual, crushed my cigarette under my boot, and calmly walked back to the truck. I got in and locked the doors. I put it in drive, foot hovering over the gas, but for some reason, I didn't peel out. I just watched him. He continued walking, one step at a time. He never increased his pace or slowed down. His hood obscured his face, yet his eyes remained fixated on me. His gaze could pierce your soul. He reached the passenger window and stopped. Lifting his bony hand, he knocked on the glass. My body jerked involuntarily. He brought his pale, skinny face closer to the window. I noticed his hollow cheeks and sleepless eyes. His lips were badly cracked, like he hadn't had a drink in days. I didn't want to, but I rolled down the window an inch. "What's up, man?" I asked in a firm voice, gripping the wheel. He let out a deep, raspy breath and replied, I need you to call the cops. I took a good look at him, trying to find possible signs of an injury to determine if he needed help or not. I couldn't see a single scratch on him. Confusedly, I asked, "Is everything all right?" He lifted his hand and started scratching his head with a knife. His eyeballs moved randomly, like he didn't know what to do with the weapon. The sharp blade of the knife glinted in the moonlight. I came out here to kill myself," he said in a low, shaking voice. "Walked from town, but when I was about to do it, I saw their faces. My daughters. I couldn't go through with it." For a long second, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the faint clicking of my hazard lights. I called the cops and made sure to stay in my car, watching him constantly until they arrived. He didn't move. He just stood there, quietly crying. Tears streamed down that dead-eyed face as if they didn't even belong to him. I told him gently to leave the knife on the ground before the cops arrived. He stared at me like he didn't understand, then slowly crouched and placed the blade on the gravel. When the red and blue lights of the cop cars finally flashed in my rearview mirror, I felt relieved. They cuffed him, patted him down, and asked me a few questions. Before they drove off with the man, I walked to his door to have a few last words with him. I wasn't scared anymore. "Hey," I said, meeting his eyes one last time. "It's not over. You hear me? You walked out of those woods alive. Don't waste that. Live for your girls." He didn't say anything. He just gave a slight, barely noticeable nod. Then they took him away. It's been years since that night, but sometimes when I'm driving these empty roads, I see him again, standing by the tree line, watching, waiting. And I wonder, did he make it? Or is part of him still out there, lost in the dark? Either way, I don't stop to piss on the side of the road anymore. I still don't want to talk about what happened at Camp Echo Pines. My parents say I made it up. The counselor claimed that it was merely a trick of the shadows, but I know what I saw. I was excited when my parents dropped me off at the summer camp. Kids were running everywhere. I was excited to make new friends. Our camp counselor assigned us to cabins. The girls' cabin was on the left side of the campsite, and the boys' on the right. I shared a room with 3 other children, and we enjoyed having fun throughout the day. After dinner, we went back to our cabins, as we had an early morning hike the next day. Even if I was tired, sleep didn't come easy because of the new surroundings. The bunk beds creaked every time I moved, and the cabin smelled like old wood and bug spray. But I slowly drifted off. It was probably past midnight when I woke up with the urge to pee. I regretted drinking too much lemonade. The outhouse wasn't that far, but the thought of going out into the dark by myself spooked me. I didn't want to wake anyone else up because they were all snoring. I took my flashlight, unzipped my sleeping bag, and stepped out of the cabin door. The trees were moving slowly with the gentle breeze. The sound of crickets and hooting owls made the atmosphere more eerie. I walked over the gravel path holding the flashlight. Its beams bounced in front of me. I was halfway to the outhouse when I heard a rustle in the woods. It sounded like someone stepping on dry leaves. I stopped and looked around, but no one was there. I quickly reached the outhouse, wanting to get done ASAP. Just before entering, I pointed my flashlight at the deep woods behind it, and I saw something. There was a person standing between the trees looking at me. He had no clothes, only his underwear. His skin was pale, and his face was full of veins. He wasn't moving, just stood there. His eyes were wide and focused on me, while his arms hung at his sides. I gulped in fear, because he wasn't standing very far, and the fence between us was severely damaged. "Hello?" I yelled in a shaken voice. He blinked, but didn't say anything. The blank expression on his face made him look like a patient straight out of a mental institution. I called out again. Do you need help?" He still didn't answer, but this time, he smiled. My body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. My legs felt like cement, and my hands shook so much that I almost dropped the flashlight. Then, all of a sudden, he took a step. I jumped. Dry leaves crunched under his bare foot as he started coming towards me. He wasn't running, just weirdly walking in my direction. He was so thin that I could see his ribs through his skin. It looked like he hadn't eaten in weeks. He kept coming at me, and I just stood there, completely drowned in trauma and shock. When he was only inches away, I heard my counselor's voice echoing from the campsite. "Who's there?" His loud call brought me to reality. I turned around and ran down the gravel path, my flashlight making strange shadows on the trees around me. I was wheezing and crying, and my eyes started to hurt. I fell once and cut my hand on the gravel, but I got back up. I just wanted to get to the cabin, close the door, and never come out. My counselor saw me running like a lost kid. He stopped and asked why I was so late. I told him about the man in the woods. He immediately woke up the other camp volunteers, and they all searched the campground for possible intrusion. When they saw the broken fence, they became worried because it allowed not only people, but also wild animals to enter the campground. The team took me to the office for first aid. The search went on for almost an hour, but no sketchy dude in underwear was found in the area. The next morning, the maintenance guys were called, and they repaired the fence. The counselor also informed the local cops just for safety purposes. We continued camping a week more, but I didn't go out of the cabin after dark. I deliberately drank less water so I wouldn't have to go pee. Slowly, everyone said I just hallucinated because no one else saw him apart from me. Do you also think it was my imagination? It was a boring Saturday night, and my parents went to visit my grandma. I was randomly scrolling through Netflix when Susie invited me to grab a bite at McDonald's with her little brother. I called my mom and told her about this sudden plan. Even though she said yes, I could spot the worry in her voice for going out after dark. But I was 16, and at that age, we hardly listened to our parents. I thought she was worrying for nothing because the restaurant was just 2 blocks away, and I always carried Mace in my bag. Putting some music in my ears, I peacefully walked to the restaurant. It was only 7 p.m., so the place was flooding with customers. Susie waved at me from a table in the corner, and I smiled at her. We laughed, we joked, and we gossiped with every bite of our burgers. I ate a little too much fries, which didn't leave space for the entire Big Mac to fit in. Just when I was thinking of wrapping it up and take home for a midnight snack, a filthy-looking homeless guy approached our table.
"If you're not gonna eat it, can I have it?"
His voice sounded broken, like he had a years-old cough stuck in his larynx. He took out a dirty, muddy hand from his pocket and stretched it in my direction, hoping I would hand him my food.
Sorry, but I'm gonna eat it later.
His face turned sad as he said those lines. His eyes sunk deep with pleading, but I stuck to my decision. Susie suggested to buy him some food, but I stopped her.
Why don't you get a job so you can buy food for yourself?
I said this out loud to catch the attention of the security. I also exaggerated a lie when they asked us if he was bothering us. In the next 2 minutes, he was thrown out of the store. They pushed him so hard that he fell on the pavement and broke his tooth. I was happy that he's gone, but Susie told me I was too harsh on him. We chilled out there for an hour more, and then got up to go home. Susie asked me to wait so her dad could drop me home, but my mom had called me thrice already. I said I'll walk home. Saying our goodbyes, I started heading home. Putting my earbuds back on, I started on the empty streets. Headlights of passing cars accompanied me through the night, when suddenly, someone threw a rock at me. It hit my head so hard that I felt I would faint. I grabbed a tree on the sidewalk and touched the back of my head, felt a swollen bump. I groaned in pain and looked around to see who threw it. Turning around, I saw a familiar face. It was the homeless guy from MacD. He was hunched on the sidewalk just a few inches away. A mix of anger and hatred illuminated his face under the neon streetlights. Before the sense of fight or flight could kick in, he sprinted towards me, grabbed me by the shoulders, and started shaking me violently.
Help! Help!
I screamed. My face was covered in my tears and sweat, but there was hardly anyone to hear my cry. I felt I was gonna vomit when he stopped. Still grabbing my shoulders, he brought his face closer and screamed at me, opening his mouth. His bad breath mixed with his spit spray-printed my face. Blood was oozing from his broken tooth.
I'm sorry! Let me go! Please!
He then pushed me on the sidewalk, making me lose my balance and fall on my back. I forgot about the Mac. I forgot I could fight. Like a tiny bug trying its best to set free from a spider web, I almost crawled back on my hands. The guy just stood there, watching me go through all the emotions before I got up and started running. I could hear his laughter echoing in the night. When I reached home, I called my mom and broke down like a little girl. My parents drove back home ASAP, but until they arrived, I just sat in the living room corner, crying and fearing the guy might show up at my house too. I constantly kept checking out the window to see if he was standing on the streets. Luckily, he wasn't. I didn't sleep well for at least a month after that incident. I didn't go out after dark for a year. Now, when I look back to the situation and think about it, I realize I did wrong the poor guy. All he asked for was food, and I denied him quite rudely. I'm 30 years old now. Until today, whenever I come across a homeless person, I offer them some money as my repentance for treating that man like he didn't matter. The worst you can do is say no, right? These were my exact thoughts when I decided to ask Betty out again. We had a nasty breakup, while it was worse for her than me. For days, she kept texting and calling me, screaming and crying. It was hard for her to digest that we were no longer together. I went to New York for a work project and eventually forgot about her. But a few months back, we crossed paths again. I was standing outside a coffee shop when I heard a familiar voice, and she was standing on the sidewalk, talking on her phone. She looked different, a little too happy maybe. Seeing her smile like that, I realized I could have ended it better. So one Friday night, I mustered up the courage and asked Betty out. She agreed right away, and we met for our first post-breakup date at a nightclub. The bar was swinging with men and women. We drank and laughed and danced. It all felt nice. As I sat down beside her, I couldn't help but apologize again. Listen, Bet, I'm sorry about our breakup. I should have treated you right. She flipped her hair to her back and said,
Yeah, you should have. But it's all right. I hold no grudge.
I leaned in to kiss her, but she stopped me.
How about we take this forward at my place? Kind of our private after party.
I was a little drunk and I wanted to get some, so I agreed, quite immediately. Betty took me to her luxurious 4 BHK apartment. Whoa, this place is fire. You stay alone here?
Mostly. Sometimes I bring my dates here.
She poured me a glass of champagne, and once I finished it, pointed at her bedroom, saying,
Let's not keep you waiting for long.
I followed her like a puppy, but as soon as I stepped in the bedroom, she pushed me in and locked the door from the outside. I balanced myself, avoiding a fall. I turned back to the door and knocked on it, laughing. Come on, Bet, still punishing me for last time? I said I'm sorry. My, what a sweet candy you are. Suddenly, my stomach dropped. A man's voice forced me to turn around and take a quick look at the room. There was indeed a man. He was wearing gym shorts. The way he sat on the bed felt like he was waiting for me. Brushing his long, bony fingers on his hairy chest, he spoke again. It's time for a raise, Betty. You're the handsomest one she's brought in. What? Who are you? I'm SJ. Betty works for me, officially as well as unofficially. He laughed, then headed for the cupboard. I started punching on the door. Betty, open the door! Let me out!
Sorry, I only listen to my boss, not you.
Her amused voice rang from the other side of the door. Tears rolled down my cheek. Anger, hatred, and fear all rushed through my veins at once. Did she lure me into a trap? The man has gotten up from the bed now. Suddenly, My head started to spin. My entire body went numb, and I couldn't keep standing anymore. What's happening? I remember the glass of champagne Betty gave me right after entering her apartment. I tried my best to speak, but even my voice gave up on me. And then I passed out. I woke up to the smell of rotten mush and sticky ground. My head was heavy like a rock. When my blurry vision stabilized, I found myself lying in a heap of garbage in a very shady alley. Flies were sitting on my skin. My clothes were ruined. There was a big stain on my pants that seemed like blood and something more. I wanted to cry, but my tears were dried up. Shame, guilt, and pain all dawned on me. I can't recollect how I reached home. I took many showers to wash off the filth and the memories, but I still feel the reeking smell from the garbage pit circling me. I haven't told anyone anything about that awful night. I haven't gotten any text or call from Betty since. I wish I had the courage to go to the cops, but speaking about that night spirals my trauma even more. Maybe someday I can finally speak up and get justice for myself. Sometimes I laugh at myself looking at the mirror. What a naive guy I was, that I thought the worst she could do was say no. I work as a maintenance guy in my local gym. My job includes cleaning after the closing hours, setting the equipment for the next day, and loading the lost and found to maintain the integrity of the gym. Customers often forget their towel, bandana, even wallets in a hurry to rush back home. I get paid well and I'm never influenced by greed, so even if someone leaves something expensive, I notify the gym instructor so people get their things back. Maybe that's why the owner trusts me, and I've been here for quite some time. I know this place like my own house. It's a 2-story building with the office and reception on the ground floor, and the entire gym with the washrooms area on the first. Once you made it up the stairs, you meet with a long hallway, and the end of the hallway is the big glass door entry of the gym. One afternoon, my boss called me to his office. He told me they're going to undergo a renovation, so for the next week, the gym will be closed. He told me to do a one last cleaning next Friday before the renovation begins. I happily agreed, as it will be a week off for me too. After the closing hours, I entered the gym as usual. That day it rained heavily. The entire floor was covered with muddy footprints, and the smell of damp walls mixed with sweat. Without much ado, I got to work. I was mopping the floor, humming the new Dua Lipa song I heard when a bolt of lightning struck close by. An ear-numbing crack made the glass window shudder. I was almost done cleaning the ground floor when the lights went out. The weather was getting worse, but I had to do my job. So I turned on the flashlight, grabbed the cleaning supplies, and headed for the gym area. Now, as soon as I stepped into the hallway, a weird feeling hit me. I suddenly felt like I wasn't the only one in this place. Flashes of lightning were reflecting from the windows inside the gym area, illuminating the hallway too because of the glass door. And in between those flashes, I noticed a long stretch of muddy footprints starting from the stairs, leading to the glass door. Those were footprints of someone walking in, but not going out. A rush of cold sweat ran down my spine. I thought of calling out, but then decided to keep quiet if there's an intruder. Just when I had started to walk closer to the gym entrance, the lightning flashed again, and this time I saw a head peeking at me from behind the glass door. I froze, heart pounding in my chest, flashlight shaking slightly in my hand. The head that had peeked through the glass door hadn't just popped in for a second. It was there, a pale, skinny face behind stringy, soaked hair, watching me. His eyes were wide and glassy, unmoving, like he was trying to decide whether to lunge or vanish. For a long second, neither of us moved. And then, slowly, he stepped from behind the door. He didn't open it. He just stood behind the glass, faintly lit by the next flash of lightning. He was filthy and soaked through, an oversized army jacket, torn at the sleeves and boots caked in mud. His arms hung lopsidedly at his sides, one twitching a little. Right then, the lights came back. He looked up, then tilted his head to the side, scratching his arms with his dirty fingernails. His mouth was partially open, and I could see scars all over his face. The hollows around the eyes hinted that he hadn't eaten in days. It wasn't just his appearance, it was the way he looked at me. No fear, no guilt, just staring. I took a step back and raised my voice, trying to sound tougher than I felt. "Hey, the cops are gonna be here any minute. You better leave while you can." At first, he was frozen still. Then, something shifted. His eyes twitched, and in a heartbeat, he turned, pushed the glass door open with a creak, and started sprinting towards me. I stumbled backward, holding my mop handle tightly in case I had to swing it, but he didn't stop. He ran past me, smelling like trash can and unwashed clothes. Just as he passed, our eyes locked. There was something broken in that look, not just frightening, but mad. Not casual madness. It was the kind of madness that sits with someone until they're too far to be caught by the world anymore. He never said a word. He hurried down the stairs and disappeared into the storm. I stood there alone, shaken, mop still in hand, the hallway ringing with the fading sound of boots and thunder. After 5 minutes, when I'd calmed down, I called the owner and told him everything. He did come with 2 cops who searched the entire gym. Looks like the receptionist forgot to lock the back door before leaving, and the guy came in from there. I worked there for 2 more years and never saw that guy again, but those 2 years, I went to work with a can of mace and a small knife in my pocket for just in case. I didn't expect much from my new school. Brightfield Academy was a place for the best and brightest, but it felt more like a prison where the inmates were polished with privilege, all perfect smiles and sharp edges. I wasn't like them. I wasn't thin, and I wasn't popular. I was Tessa, introverted, intelligent, and curvy. That last part made me a target. From day one, it was the same. Whispers, stares, and cruel notes left in my locker.
Ever heard of portion control? Whale sighting in the gym.
It was like the walls themselves were breathing judgment, and the girls, they were like a pack of wolves circling the weak, with me at the center. I tried to ignore it, but the isolation was suffocating. I spent my days dodging their mocking glances, trying to avoid the sting of their wounds, but the worst was always gym class. That day, after yet another round of taunting, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I found myself running to the nurse's office, tears threatening to fall. The office was dim, the air thick with the scent of herbs and something strangely soothing. Nurse Merrill was there, as always, soft-spoken and gentle. She never asked too many questions, never seemed to care about the details. She just knew how to make things feel quiet. I told her I couldn't take it anymore. She listened, nodding, her eyes soft with sympathy.
You need something to help.
She said in her calm voice.
These pills.
She reached into a drawer and handed me a small velvet pouch.
They're from the old country. They'll help with the weight. Give them a try.
I hesitated. Something in her eyes made me question it, but I was desperate. The pills tasted chalky, dry as if they were made from ash, but within hours, I felt different. My appetite vanished. The constant hunger that gnawed at me was replaced with a surge of energy. I felt light, almost euphoric. By the next day, the change was undeniable. The scale showed I'd lost 5 pounds. My classmates started noticing.
You look good.
They said, half mocking, half curious. It wasn't much, but it was something. I clutched the velvet pouch tightly in my hands, taking a pill every morning and every night. I told myself I would stop, but somehow I couldn't. It didn't take long for things to go wrong. My reflection became distorted. My face thinned unnaturally, my cheeks hollowing out as though something inside me was eating me alive. I tried to stop taking the pills, but every time I reached for the drawer where I kept them, the pouch was there, always refilled. One night, I looked in the mirror, and it wasn't me staring back. I was fading. My body felt wrong. Bruises appeared without reason, my skin sloughing off in flakes like sunburn. I couldn't stop it. I didn't know how to stop it. The worst part? I couldn't even scream. When I opened my mouth, my voice cracked like a broken cassette tape. That's when I ran to Nurse Marrow.
I can't stop. Please help me.
I cried, my hands shaking. She looked at me with the same soft smile, but this time something darker lurked in her eyes.
You wanted to be seen, Tessa.
She said, her voice low, almost a whisper.
But you didn't want to be seen like that. I can show you how to disappear. I can make them never laugh at you again.
Marrow pulled out an old photograph. A girl, overweight, surrounded by classmates who mocked her. The caption read, Marrow, class of 79. It was her. She had been like me, and then she had disappeared.
They laughed at me too once, until I learned how to fade away. This school teaches you how to erase what they hate. I give you the tools.
Suddenly, everything clicked. I wasn't the first. She'd done this before. The pills weren't just for weight loss. They were part of something far more sinister. Nurse Marrow had been doling out pills to students for years. Some disappeared emotionally. Others disappeared entirely. I wanted to run, but my body was failing. I couldn't feel heat or cold anymore. I couldn't eat without vomiting. I was fading away, my body becoming a ghost, a shell. I stumbled back to the nurse's office, desperate to destroy the pouch, to stop it. But Marrow was there. She caught me, stronger than I expected. She pinned me down.
You wanted to be seen, but not like you were. This is better.
She whispered, her face contorted with something close to hunger.
This is beautiful.
With all the strength I had left, I headbutted her. I reached for the burner stove and tossed the velvet pouch into the flames. It hissed, the smoke dark and thick, swirling around us. Marrow's face contorted.
My masterpiece.
I don't know what happened after that. My world went black. When I woke up, I was in the hospital bed with my parents. They told me the cops arrested Nurse Marrow for giving me substances that messed with my physical and mental state. When I fainted in the office, she thought I died and was dragging me to the back. That's when our school janitor saw me and stopped Marrow. She ran away, leaving me unconscious, and the cops were called. Till today, I wonder where is she now? What is she doing? I just hope no other innocent life falls into her trap. I signed up for yoga because I needed something to help me get back to my normal life. My mind was a hub of anger and regret after the toxic separation with my ex-husband, so I thought a little soul healing would do me good. I enrolled in a local yoga studio, nestled between a vegan cafe and a nail salon. The very first day I entered through the doors, a calming smell of sandalwood and lavender hinted that I'd come to the right place. Our yoga teacher, Mira, told me there's going to be a special Kundalini meditation workshop and I should attend it. She said,
It's perfect for grounding and waking up your inner self.
with a comforting smile that most yoga teachers seem to have. I didn't refuse because it sounded promising. I wanted peace so I could feel alive again. Apart from me, there were about 10 women joining the class. Mira arranged our mats in a circle, placing a flickering candle in front of each one. Mira turned off the room lights and told us to take positions on our mats. We sat cross-legged in the warm light of the candles. The session began with a spiritual Om chant playing in the speakers, and Mira's soothing voice guiding us into breathwork. She asked us to keep our eyes closed.
Breathe in through your nose. Hold. Breathe out through your mouth.
My breath was shaky at the start, as if my restless body was pulling up a protest. But in the next 15 minutes, I started to feel like I was floating. The air changed, and I was perfectly at peace. So far, everything was going all right, but then I began hearing a weird sound. At first, it was just a rhythmic wheezing, but then it escalated like someone was having difficulty breathing. I opened one eye just to get a look around. One of the students, a girl sitting right across from me, breathed harder than the rest of us. I thought she was trying too hard and going too far, but suddenly, she started to rock back and forth like a metronome. I saw Mira get up and walk to her quietly. She held her hand and tried to calm her down.
It's okay. Let it flow. It'll be all right.
She kept telling the girl, but the girl's rapid breathing increased. She was breathing so heavily now that all of us opened our eyes and had to look at her. Her chest rose and fell as if someone were simultaneously inflating and then deflating it. Her eyes were wide open, with her veins popping out of her forehead. Her eyeballs constantly moved, like a trapped mouse finding its way in a maze. Mira tried to grab her by the shoulder, telling her to calm down, but she didn't bother. Instead, she started laughing. Her laughter sounded as if 2 or 3 voices were layered on top of each other. Soon, the entire class became terrified as they observed the girl's changing demeanor. I started panicking when her rocking stopped. She looked right at me. And then, she said something in a language that I never heard. No one in the room seemed to understand what was happening to her. Mira stepped back with her face turning pale. She quickly switched on the lights, and the girl's body suddenly became stiff. Her jaw stretched into this giant hollow, and her eyes rolled back. She collapsed on her yoga mat without saying another word. We were all horrified by what just happened. Mira went close to her, and after about 10 seconds, she opened her eyes.
Did I fall asleep?
She asked, rubbing her eyes like a kid waking up from a nap. She couldn't remember anything. Mira told her about her shocking episode, and she walked away immediately. I never saw her again. I cornered Mira after the session.
What the hell happened to her?
Mira let out a sigh and closed her eyes.
Sometimes these karmic meditations can take us to another world. She might have gone somewhere she wasn't supposed to. Something might have come back with her. You mean she got possessed?
Mira nodded slowly, her face still pale with the fear. Any other time I would have laughed it off, but I did see the girl and her scary reactions. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the girl's laughter in my head, and the strange voices that were overlapping with hers. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see her face, how her pupils were swallowed by darkness. I told Mira the next day that I wouldn't take any more meditation classes. She didn't fight back.
Take care of your energy, Sophia,
she said. Since then, I'd gone to other yoga studios, but I don't do Kundalini. I would rather not sit in the dark with a circle of candles. I don't even close my eyes when I do breath work. Maybe Mira was wrong. Maybe it was just a psychotic break, or an epileptic episode. But what if it wasn't? What if the girl really did bring something back? And what if they're still looking for someone else to ride? This happened last week. I was driving down the empty highway for almost 4 hours. I needed to deliver some machine parts for a construction company in Utah. It rained for the first few miles, which compelled me to drive slowly. Upon reaching the dusty road, I was exhausted. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and I decided it would be best to stop for the night and begin after sunrise. I parked the truck under a tree and finished the cold turkey sandwich made by my wife. It tasted like her hugs. I rolled down the window to take a good look at my surroundings. It wasn't raining, but a cold, gushing wind was howling into the darkness of the night. Closing the window curtains, I reclined the seat and used my jacket like a blanket to fall asleep. After about an hour, I heard the door handle jiggle. It came from the driver's side. It sounded like metal against metal. The sound was subtle and almost polite, like whoever was out there was checking to see if maybe they could just let themselves in. I sat straight up. You know that feeling when you're deeply asleep but you hear an unfamiliar sound and you immediately open your eyes, trying to figure out whether what you heard is real or not? That one. So far, no cars passed by. There had not even been the crunch of tires. I took my time to pop back up. I tiptoed to the edge of the curtain and peeked out from the corner, but I saw nothing outside. All I saw were empty roads and trees. Suddenly, I heard a click on the passenger door handle. I crouched down, popping my face up to the top of the curtain once again, but there was no one. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I pressed the starter. The engine roared to life, and the lights illuminated the way. Spotlights, floodlights, everything worked. The high beams showed the long, stretched road ahead, and it was empty. No person was hiding next to my door, and no car was behind me. I told myself it was the wind. Hell, it must have been gusty. Maybe the friction had caused some tumbleweed to bounce against my truck. That's what I told myself. I rolled over to return to sleep, but sleep wasn't coming easily now. My ears sharpened. I could hear every creak of my truck frame, every rustling of the wind outside, as my mind twisted them into footsteps. Suddenly, the vents started rattling. You know those little panel vents next to the sleeper berth? The ones that no one pays any mind to? Well, it sounded like fingers were prying at the other side. Someone was scraping on them, slowly. The door handles rattled once more, but this time with great intensity. I was starting to get scared now because this wasn't just the work of one person. It has to be a group of them. Once the rattling stopped, someone started punching on the metal body of the truck. It felt as though a weight was pressing down in an unexpected place. Someone or something was crawling onto my truck from the back because I couldn't see anyone on the windshield. I hit the panic button back in the sleeper. The truck alarm started going off. The alarm was loud enough to rouse the dead. I thought for sure that'd send them scurrying, but it didn't. The noises continued, tapping, scraping. The alarm synchronized with the clicking of the handles. The air suspension hissed as if the truck sighed under a heavy load. The glass of the windshield cracked from the corner because something was paddling footfalls across the roof. I didn't dare to come out. I was terrified for my life. I don't exactly remember how long this chaos sustained, but it stopped all of a sudden. The alarm blared for a few more seconds, and everything went silent. It felt as though the world had regained its clarity. For a few long minutes, the only thing I could hear was my own ragged breathing and racing heartbeat. A few minutes later, headlights sliced into the road. Another truck drove past me, and I felt alive again. I remained awake throughout the night, tightly gripping a tire iron as if my survival relied on it. As soon as the sunlight hit the trees, I jumped out of the truck, still clutching the tire iron. I looked for footprints and tire tracks, and to my shock, there were dragging bloodstains all over the truck. It appeared as though hordes of hungry zombies had scavenged across the truck, their wounds exposed. And on every window, driver's side, passenger side, even way up on the sleeper's little portholes, were tiny handprints, like a toddler's. It seemed as if someone had licked their palms multiple times and pressed them against the glass. There weren't any tracks leading to or from the truck. Only the tiny, sticky handprints clung to the glass, and the truck's body was covered in bloodstains. I had to clean the truck before driving off because if a cop car spotted me, they would have charged me with murder. I still don't know what happened and who did all that to my truck that night. I'm just glad to make it out alive. I still remember how thrilled I was to spend the summer at Uncle Ben's farm. Uncle Ben's farm was a place filled with endless fields, a lake resembling glass, and my older cousin Jack, whose wild ideas transformed even the most mundane chores into thrilling adventures. The tent was the best thing he bought that summer. One morning, Jack said,
Let's camp by the lake. We can fish and cook 'em over a fire. It'll be fun to sleep outside tonight.
At the age of 11, I enthusiastically accepted. Of course I said yes. We spent the entire day fishing, submerging our toes in the water, and laughed without any worries. Jack successfully caught 3 perches. I got 1 and a strange-looking boot. Our dads helped us put up the tent and build a fire. Jack and I carefully cooked the fish until it was crispy and a little burnt, just the way Jack liked it. When the sun went down behind the trees, the lake turned golden, and the shadows in the backyard got longer and thinner. I was taking in the beautiful view of the lake when I felt a strange tingle on the back of my neck. My eyes scanned through the woods around, and for a moment, I thought someone was watching us, though I saw no one. I didn't say anything to Jack because I knew he wouldn't believe me. Instead, he'll make fun of me for being a baby. But I kept looking at the trees behind the house until it got dark. The sound of the forest is one of a kind. A group of coyotes started howling in the woods. Their howls echoed all over the lake, making the night more mysterious. After dinner, we crawled into the tent, zipped it up, and listened to their howls. It took Jack just a few minutes to fall asleep. I lay there, looking at the nylon ceiling, my stomach still buzzing with worry. After 15 minutes, when I just started to doze off, I heard a noise. The fire outside was still going on, casting a dying glow on the tent. The howls of the coyotes were now replaced with the sound of chirping crickets. The woods felt too silent all of a sudden. I shook off the feeling of dread, thinking it was some wild animal, when I noticed someone standing just outside the tent. With the moonlight shining off the lake, mixed with the soft, warm light from the fire, I could clearly see a man's shadow. I thought it was Dad at first. He might have come to see how we were doing. But whoever it was didn't say a single word, just stood there in complete silence. He was of average height with broad shoulders. My heart raced in my chest. I could hardly breathe. Then, very slowly, the figure crouched down. It bent its knees in strange ways, as if it didn't want to wake us up. Then, it pushed its face against the tent's mesh window. I stopped moving. It wasn't my father. I couldn't see the whole face, but what I could see made my stomach turn. The eyes were too wide and glowed in the dark, like a hungry wolf watching its prey. I could feel my palms getting sweaty and my throat dry. I wanted to yell, wanted to get Jack up, but I had a feeling that I shouldn't let this man know I can see him too. Who knows? If I make a noise, things might get worse. So I did the only thing I could do. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. Inside, I was praying that this man leave without any trouble. I don't know how long I lay like that. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. I just kept my eyes closed and listened to my heartbeat like a drum in my chest. And then suddenly, I heard footsteps fading away. I was awake all night. I didn't open my eyes until the first light of dawn came into the tent. Jack was still snoring next to me, not knowing what just happened. When we finally got up and unzipped the flap, the grass outside was wet with dew and had footprints on it. The footprints were big and bare, and they circled the tent. I told Jack what I did last night, and he screamed for my uncle. When Uncle and Dad came, I told them about the guy. They looked in the backyard, along the tree line, and even by the lake. No one in the house had gone out during the night, and there were no signs that anyone else was close by. There were no tracks or shoes left behind, just prints. My dad said it was probably a bear. Uncle Ben said it might have been a drifter, but I still remember those eyes and the shadowy face pressed against the mesh window. Whoever or whatever was outside our tent that night didn't come searching for help. It definitely had some bad intentions. I'm a personal yoga trainer who gives one-on-one sessions, and my classes don't come cheap. I don't teach just as a hobby or simple workout. Most of my clients are either business professionals with stiff backs or elderly socialites who use green juice and downward dog exercises to rejuvenate their youthful energy. Awkward is nothing new to me because I'm more than used to strange. But what happened last year is the main reason why I'm afraid to take new clients. I was by a middle-aged man who recently went through some accident leading to a severe back injury. He said I was referred to him by a former client, and I believed him without digging deeper into his claims.
He called himself Mr. Bellamy and offered me 3 times what I usually charge for in-home sessions. Even though I was making good money with my regular clients, who says no to more money, right? I thought I could deal with him, even if something awkward happened, because the money would help me get a bigger apartment at the end of the month. I reached his house, hoping to see a lot of grandeur. The house was big and fancy from the outside, but on the inside it looked like a model home, modern and glassy. There were only white walls, straight lines, and almost no furniture. I felt an unease that moment I stepped in, but I thought it was just rich people being minimalistic. I made some small talk with Mr. Bellamy and put my mat in the living room. He sat on the couch and watched me, with his hands folded neatly in his lap.
My doctors don't want me to move around much yet, so I would just watch and learn today.
I paused for a second, but then he reminded me that he was going to pay exactly what he promised. So I decided to just get on with the session. Once I began the poses, I noticed a smirk on his face, which got wider with each passing second. The way he watched me sitting in silence, without blinking, made my skin crawl. During some poses, he would ask me to repeat it, saying he needs to memorize my posture well, which only added to my discomfort. Still, I continued while keeping my discomfort hidden behind a tight-lipped smile. 20 minutes into the session, during the sun salutation, I moved to the cobra pose when I noticed a small black camera lens blinking red in the top corner of the room. It was aimed only at me. I froze for a second. A bile churned inside of me, and the empty house and the sketchy man all made sense all of a sudden. This pervert was recording me. I got up, doing my best to conceal my anger, as I was uncertain about what this man was capable of.
Mr. Bellamy,
I said, trying to keep my voice steady.
I think we're done for today. I have taught you enough to remember until next session.
He didn't answer right away, just slowly tilted his head.
Do a few freestyle poses for me before you go,
he insisted in a sick voice.
No, I'm done.
I'll pay twice as much.
I don't care.
I said as I rolled up my mate and almost sprinted out of the house. When I got to the driveway, my hands were shaking. I blocked his number and deleted the email thread as soon as I got home. I tried to forget about it all. But the next morning, I got an email from an unknown sender. There was no subject, just a link in it. I should have deleted it, but I couldn't help but look. It opened up to a blog about yoga fetishes, a lot of zoomed-in stills from my session, with each pose recorded and stored. I called the cops and the cyber cell right away. I gave them everything, the pictures, the house address, his name, and the email. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every noise outside my apartment window made my heart race. The police called the next day. The officer said,
"Yeah, no one lives at that address."
"The house has been empty for months. The owner moved to another state last year. It is now for sale."
"Ma'am,"
he said slowly,
"we don't know who you met."
"It's unclear how they gained entry. However, there have been several lock changes in the past few weeks. We're looking into it." I was lucky, but luck isn't enough anymore. Now, I look into every client. I bring a friend with me to the first session, and I will never, ever ignore my instincts again.
I've always been bold, confident, unapologetic, an influencer who built my platform on being a proud, plus-sized woman in a world that wanted to silence me. But even I couldn't escape the trolls. They came for my body, my looks, my every post, and for a while, it felt like nothing I did could silence their hate. But then, the email came, and suddenly, it seemed like maybe everything I'd worked for was about to pay off. It was from Divine, a high-end fashion label known for its inclusive campaigns. They were launching a new line called Real Body, and they wanted me to be a part of it. Their message promised an exclusive retreat, a photo shoot unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I had to take it. This was it, my big break. I could already hear the voices in my head telling me how great it would be, how the retreat would give me a chance to prove everyone wrong. I wasn't prepared for what came next. I arrived at the mansion, a sprawling desert estate far from anyone and everyone. I was greeted with champagne, a warm smile, and a sleek, minimalist room that felt sterile, almost too perfect. The only thing that felt off was the contract I had to sign upon arrival. It forbade any outside contact during the retreat. They said it was for creative integrity. The first day was a whirlwind of fittings, glam, and photo shoots. Everyone was obsessed with making us look perfect, but something nagged at me. There were no mirrors, no reflective surfaces. The food was tiny portions of tasteless meals, barely enough to fill a stomach. When I asked about it, a staff member smiled and said,
"We want to see your true hunger to show on film."
I thought it was just part of the brand's vision for the shoot, so I let it go. But by day 3, I started feeling uneasy. The glamour faded quickly. The staff began to grow distant, colder. The atmosphere shifted. Something about it felt wrong, like we weren't the models here. We were the subjects of something darker. The stylists started to become abusive, yelling at us, pushing us harder. Every moment was more intense than the last, and they took our phones for creative focus, they said. But that wasn't all. During one of the shoots, I saw Lena, one of the other influencers, completely break down. She cried on set, unable to keep it together anymore. I watched in horror as she was led away by the staff, her face blotchy and red, her spirit clearly shattered. The next morning, Lena was gone. They said she had left the retreat early, but when I found bloodstains on her bed, I couldn't pretend it was just a coincidence. I tried to ignore the rising panic, but my suspicions grew stronger each day. During a forced empowerment walk through the desert, I noticed hidden cameras tucked into rocks, peeking out from the brush, following our every step. Something was off. That night, when everyone was asleep, I snuck into the editing room, hoping to find some answers. What I found wasn't what I expected, even in my worst nightmare. On one of the laptops, a live chat window was open, and there I was, on the screen, half naked, crying in a fitting room. I wasn't alone. The other women, too, were being humiliated in real time, our vulnerabilities laid bare for an anonymous audience. The site was called True Form, a platform where viewers could pay to trigger humiliating commands, insults, food restrictions, and stress tests. It wasn't just a modeling shoot. It was an endurance game, a sick, twisted form of entertainment. That's when I realized the horrifying truth. We weren't here to be celebrated. We were here to be broken. And Lena hadn't left. She had collapsed during a shoot, a casualty of their twisted game, and they'd whisked her away, like she was nothing more than an expendable object. I knew I was trapped, but I wasn't going to play their game. The final night arrived and everything was set up for the big reveal, the moment they thought I'd crack. But instead of submitting, I turned the tables. I found my way into the control room and stole a live mic. I began streaming everything, every hidden camera, every vile moment, every piece of evidence. I broadcasted it to the world, hoping someone, anyone, would see it and help. I begged for the viewers to leak the truth, but the staff wasn't having it. They stormed the room and a struggle broke out. I fought back, grabbing a bottle of acid from a station they used to distress clothes and threw it into one of their faces. It wasn't enough to stop them, and they kept coming. I bolted to the control room, locked myself in, and grabbed a forgotten backup phone hidden in my boot. I started streaming everything, every file, every feed, Instagram Live. I exposed them all, the twisted fetishists who'd paid to watch us suffer, the handlers who tortured us, the sick game they'd played at our expense. A massive chaos erupted. The sirens started in the distance. My hands were shaking as I held the door, praying for the police to arrive before they could get through. On the live feed, I could see the other girls, terrified, some bloodied, some screaming, huddled in rooms behind two-way mirrors. And then, the stream cut off. A week later, the news broke. Underground fashion ring busted for torture exploitation. I was hailed as a hero, but the truth? The trauma? It was deeper than anyone knew. The police had arrived in time, but the damage had already been done. I sat in a hospital bed, bruised and exhausted, surrounded by reporters, cameras flashing. I smiled, knowing I'd won, at least on the surface. But when I looked in the mirror for the first time since escaping, the reflection wasn't what I expected. I was thinner, pale. The weight of what had happened had drained me in ways I couldn't explain. I picked up my lipstick and applied it slowly, staring at the woman in the mirror.
You're not content. You're fire.
I whispered to her.
Last week, my sister went on a business trip, leaving my nephew at my place. My nephew loves me because I have always been the fun uncle for him. There was no strict bedtime or constant banning of fast foods at my place. We had a fun week, and on our last day together, we decided to go to McDonald's for burgers. When we reached, the first thing that caught my mind was how busy the restaurant was. I placed the order and picked up the food. Just then, my nephew pointed to a seat where a middle-aged man was also sitting. I didn't think much, and we sat down. There was a long-cut mark on his right cheek that appeared pretty fresh.
Happy Meal, huh? Let's see what toys you got.
Ricky looked at me with timid eyes, and I nodded at him. He showed his minion toys to the man. The man took a keen interest in the toys, which gave me weird vibes. The man kept talking about how he loves McDonald's toys because each one is unique. Then went on saying the previous toys used to be more exciting, but it was a shame they got banned. Now that interested Ricky, and he started talking to the man as well. It was all a casual convo, so I didn't see any harm in it. But now, when I look back, I realize what a grave mistake it was.
Why did they ban the toys?
Well, some people thought they were wrong.
Wrong? Why?
I expected the man to discuss any hazardous factor about the old McDonald's toys. Still, instead, he put his hand into his pocket. I watched him struggling to take out something from his pocket, which obviously had been stuck. Ricky got impatient and asked,
What? What is it?
The man smiled, ear to ear, still struggling to get whatever it was in his pocket. I was curious too at this point. Then, I heard a crushing sound of a paper bag. The man took out this paper bag, which had something inside. He placed the bag on the table and pulled out this bizarre McDonald's toy, shaped like a jellyfish. Its droopy tentacles, human-like face, and oddly fixed grin violated the lines between kids' meal fun and explicit intent. Its translucent dome head only added to the alien horror, making it weirdly memorable and slightly disturbing.
Isn't it amazing? Look how big it is. Touch it. Touch it to feel its hard surface.
Now here I had to put a stop. The implication of the toy and the man's sarcastically chosen words made me understand his evil intention. This guy is sick. My face turned red in embarrassment, and in a low but strict voice I said, "Excuse me, I don't think you should talk to my kid like that." His eyes, which were fixated on Ricky for the last few minutes, shifted to me.
Kids love toys. I'm just telling him to touch it once. What's wrong with that?
He doesn't need to touch anything that you have been in contact with. Now, you better leave this place or I'm gonna make you.
Really?
He leaned slightly closer to my face and said,
What are you gonna do? Ban me from McDonald's?
I was on the verge to beat the crap out of him, but he got up and left.
That guy gave me the creeps, Uncle Ted.
Me too. Let's go home. We'll eat in the car. I was fuming with rage. On our way to the exit, I informed the McDonald's employee about the guy, but she brushed it off, saying creeps are all over the world. We got in the car and were about to drive away, when suddenly, a big hand stomped on my window. It was him, again. Ricky screamed in terror. Without opening the window, I cussed him and told him I'll go to the cops right now, but none of my words created any worry on his face. Instead, he took out the jellyfish toy and gave it a big lick from bottom to top. I wanted to get down and slap him as hard as I could, but Ricky was already crying, so I had to drive home. The poor kid barely slept that night. The next morning, when I dropped him off at the airport, he was constantly looking around with fear in his eyes. I knew what he was thinking, but I didn't bring up the man again. Once he got home safely to my sister, I called her and told her everything. I even reported the guy to the cops, but since he didn't do anything physically harmful to us, the cops said they couldn't arrest him. I really hope that pervert trips and falls into a manhole, because people like him are nothing but filth to society. This happened when I was 8 years old. One sunny afternoon, my mom asked me if I would like to accompany her to Walmart for some cleaning supplies. I told her I needed a new set of colors for the Father's Day card, and she happily agreed. When we entered Walmart, I was stunned. It was such a big place that I squeezed my mom's hand too tightly. Mom gave me a gentle pat on my back and said,
Let's get new colors.
Mom always made me feel good in tense situations. I guess mothers are born with superpowers. My mom is still my superhero, and you'll soon find out why. We began exploring the place, going through aisle after aisle, and seeing all kinds of things in the world available in one place. Coming from a small town, I was flabbergasted. As we were walking around, I noticed a woman following us. No matter which way we went, we would always end up near her, or maybe it's the other way around. My mom didn't notice her, because every time she turned back, the woman hid behind the aisles. I thought of telling my mom this, but eventually forgot. When we reached near the stationery section and I was about to go through all the color sets, my mom told me to wait here as she was going to the washroom quickly. I was a good kid, so I did what my mom said. As I waited, my eyes kept searching for the woman. A few minutes went by and I was wondering why Mom's taking so much time when a touch of cold hands brushed off my shoulder. Turning back, I saw the same woman standing behind me with a big smile and wide, bright eyes.
Are you waiting for your mother?
She asked in a calm voice. I nodded my head. She caressed my cheek and said,
I'm a friend of your mother. Why don't you come with me? I'll take you to her.
I looked around once again, then asked,
I'm buying crayons and Mom told me to wait here until she comes back.
She crouched down to my face and said in a weird voice,
What are you gonna do with crayons?
I replied cheerfully,
I'm gonna make my dad a Father's Day card.
You love your dad a lot, huh?
Her eyes twitched as she spoke. I nodded my head again, thinking, what a stupid question. She then suddenly grabbed my hand and started walking.
I'm going to see your dad anyway. How about we go see him together?
She increased her pace. I constantly looked back. Something didn't feel right about her. I asked in a confounded voice,
But what about my mom?
The woman turned her head back slowly. An ear-to-ear grin spread across her face, and she whispered,
I'll be your new mom. A better mom. Trust me.
She started walking again. Her grip was so tight that it hurt my wrist. I felt like something very bad was going to happen if I went along with this woman. Just when we were close to the exit, I heard a familiar voice screaming my name.
Andy, stop! Don't go with her!
Everyone in Walmart looked behind me. So did I. What I saw still stays vibrantly in my memory. My mom was coming towards me, holding her bleeding head. She could barely keep her feet steady. Her shirt was drenched in blood, and I could see her crying. I realized this woman is trying to take me away from my mom, so I screamed too.
Mom! Let me go! Let me go!
All the other people around us understood that this strange woman was trying to lure a kid in her trap. The woman got scared and ran away. Walmart security called 911 and we were taken to the nearest hospital. My dad and uncle were informed too. When Walmart security showed the footage of the woman taking me away to my dad, I saw him turn pale. He immediately reported the cops, saying this woman is an ex-coworker from his previous job who is obsessed with him and stalked him. She was the reason why my dad left his job and changed address, but looks like she had followed us here too. My mom later told the cops that she went to the washroom where the woman attacked my mom and slammed her head on the wall, leaving her unconscious. My mom somehow managed to get up, fearing for my safety. The cops tracked down the woman eventually. Her name was Laylee, and she was put behind bars for aggravated assault, abduction, and stalking charges. My dad even got a restraining order against her, but this time we didn't have to change address. To this day, when I recall the memory of Laylee abducting me, I recall how brave my mom was to come for my rescue. My mom will always be my superhero. This gym has been my go-to for almost 2 years now, and it's always been a nice and quiet way to start my day. I usually go in early, at around 6:30 a.m. and get my workout in before work, and I generally prefer to leave and not have talked to anyone. Well, that's how I like it. But last week I felt strange as soon as I walked through the doors. It wasn't anything overt. The lights were on, music soft, the same few regulars spread out on the gym floor. But as I walked towards the free weights, I noticed a guy was standing near the stretching area, just watching. He was not stretching, not warming up, just standing there. He saw me and gave me this huge, exaggerated wave back like he knew me. I gave a quick and confused nod back at him and looked away. Maybe he thinks I'm somebody else. I popped in my headphones, started my set, and tried to forget about it. But he wouldn't give up. He was everywhere. When I changed equipment, I went to the treadmill, and he was next to me. But there were 5 other empty treadmills. He waved again. I avoided his wave and kept my eyes on the screen. He started jogging, but he spent more time looking sideways at me than actually working out. I only did half of my cardio workout and decided to go to the squat rack. He followed me there, of course. At one point, I bent down to pick up a plate, and when I came back up, he was there, close, too close, and smiling.
You got good posture,
he said loudly so I could hear through my headphones. I didn't say anything. I just walked away. Then I went to do some seated rows and I was trying to keep my back to him. That's when I saw him standing behind me in the reflecting mirror, just watching me again, waving. This time blatantly waving, like he wanted me to be uncomfortable. Something then happened that makes my skin crawl to this day. I went into the women's locker room, just for a minute, to fill up my water bottle at the sink. No one is in there, or so I thought. When I turned around, Carl was standing in the doorway, half in shadow behind the lockers. He wasn't allowed in there. He wasn't even trying to hide it. He had an evil expression on his face, as if waiting for me to turn and notice him. My heart probably stopped. I froze, gripping my bottle so hard my knuckles went white. I don't know how long we stood there. He didn't say anything, didn't move, same creepy smile and bulging eyes. I said,
What the hell?
and stepped back, squeezing by Carl and through the door. He followed me, only a couple of steps behind, and casual, like nothing was going down at all. That was when I walked straight to the front desk. I don't know what he was after. I don't want to know. I'd had enough. I grabbed my towel and bag and approached Jamie, one of the staff members. Being a woman, she could immediately spot the trauma on my face.
Everything okay?
She asked.
There's a guy following me around the gym.
I said, my voice low but firm.
Gray hoodie, black joggers, tall. He's been hovering around me since I walked in. It's creeping me out.
Jamie's expression tightened.
Wait, is that Carl?
I blinked.
I don't know his name.
She glanced over my shoulder and gave a subtle nod to someone behind the counter.
That's Carl. He's been warned before. He's not even supposed to be here during this time slot.
Security came a minute later, pushing through the small crowd that was needed to take the guy outside. I took a step back and watched, heart pounding, as they walked towards him. He didn't even resist, looked dumb and confused, like he didn't just comprehend what was going on after all the fuss or what the problem was. Then, on the way out, he turned around and locked eyes with me. He smiled again, a slow, sinister smile, not friendly, not contrite, just wrong. I walked out without finishing my workout. I spent the rest of the day thinking about that smile, that slow wave, how he showed up from all the opposite directions like a willing participant in a pre-rehearsed show. It all happened in 1 hour. 1 hour was enough. I got to know later from Jamie that it wasn't Carl's first time getting in trouble with harassing women. The cops found out he was already facing some minor charges for intrusion and stalking a teenager. Since then, I haven't seen him. But now, every time I walk into work, I scan my surroundings before I ever check in. I keep my keys close, and I never, ever remove both headphones. I've been driving on Mississippi roads longer than I'm willing to admit. Flat farmland, 2-lane highways that seem to stretch on forever. The quiet and emptiness gradually become familiar to you. But that night, somewhere in between Clarksdale and Greenwood, I fully understood that not all spaces are lonely. I was driving for 14 hours straight. Repeated doses of caffeine and smoking were keeping me awake. The weather had turned ugly fast. There were high wind advisories, tornado watches, and unexpected storms in the Delta. I had called my wife before leaving Clarksdale and told her to expect another call as soon as I was out of the danger zone. But 30 miles out, a hailstorm took over. The hailstorm began with small pebbles, which gradually grew in size and bounced off the hood and windshield with a sharp metallic crack. Any Mississippi boy knows summer begins with hail. I slowed down. I eased off onto the gravel shoulder. There were no cars in my wake or in front of me. It was just me and my pickup, with nothing but black farmland in every direction. I cut the engine but left the lights on. I rolled down the passenger window and retrieved my flashlight. I threw it out into the fields, and as far as my eyes went, all I could see was rippling corn and distant flashes of lightning. I leaned over to check the driver's side when I saw this man. He was standing right there, pressing his face against the glass. His eyes were so still that it felt like I was staring into 2 vacant pits. He observed me for a brief moment before beaming a broad smile. The wilderness of his smile exposed his crooked yellow teeth. I screamed, "What the hell do you want?" He said something, but I couldn't hear it due to the closed window and hailstorm outside. He kept watching me with no fear of the storm or lightning. Suddenly, a big piece of hail hit him. Blood sprinkled on my glass as a deep wound appeared on his forehead, yet he still didn't move. That's when I realized this person is not normal. Something's very wrong with him. I started the engine, gripping the steering wheel. I blinked, and he vanished from sight, as if he had never existed. He vanished into the darkness, leaving no sound or shadow behind. I didn't stay to find out where he went. The truck roared back to life, and as I skidded onto the highway, the tires threw gravel. The hail still drummed on, but I didn't care. I drove fast. I didn't look left, right, or in my mirrors. I just looked at the road. I focused on the road that was in front of me. By the time I reached the first gas station, the storm had already passed. I parked with my hand still shaking. My wife would be waiting for my phone call, so I called her back. I assured her that I was safe and maintained my composure. I didn't mention the man. I didn't mention the smile. But my mind would not let me forget. You see, our trucks have cameras. Our trucks are constantly recording from the front, rear, and interior of the cabin. I popped the SD card right there and slid it into my tablet. I had to know if that face was real or just my imagination. I watched the recording. I recorded every second from the time I left the road until I departed, but there was no sign of the man. There was only the road in the rain. The camera never saw him. I told myself it was stress. The combination of 14-hour shifts, unfavorable weather conditions, and my own delusions were to blame. The Delta can do that to you at night. The vast expanse of open space was so dimly lit that it felt like drowning. Maybe it was all in my head. Until I wiped the fog off the side of that window. I found something, and it was faint, but I did spot it. It was a smear, a wide, greasy arc right where the grin had been. Since then, I haven't driven the Delta roads at night.
If you've driven those long, empty stretches before, you know the feeling. It feels as though a presence is observing you from the edge of the cornfields amidst the storm. It seemed as though it was waiting for you to slow down, roll down your window, and take a closer look. I don't know what I saw out there, but I'll never forget those teeth. Hi, I am Tristan, and last month I attended a summer camp. I never thought ghost stories were real, at least not before Camp Nightshade Grove. It was supposed to be just another summer with crafts, canoeing, campfires, and maybe a silly crush or two. But on the third day, I heard people talking about the Ash Cabin. One morning, while we were making clay crafts, one of the older girls pointed at the woods and said,
There's an old cabin back there. In the 1950s, a fire hazard trapped a counselor inside the cabin. They say he screamed for help, but no one could get to him in time. They never found the body. Some nights, campers say they see a man walking through the woods smelling like ashes. My brother said, if you hear crackling outside your tent, don't ever come out, because he's still looking for someone to take his place. Someone who burn like he did.
She laughed like it was all a joke. However, her tone suggested that she had a more profound understanding of the situation. I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I told my best friends, Lucy and Brian, at lunch about visiting that cabin. Lucy said with a smile,
Let's do it.
We had to hike for 15 minutes in the trees behind the archery range to find it. Ash Cabin stood isolated, in disrepair and weathered by the sun. The roof was sagging, the windows were gone, and the door creaked when we walked in. Everything looked deserted, but the smell was the strangest thing. It smelled like someone had burned there yesterday, with charred wood and old smoke hanging in the air, sharp and heavy. We didn't stay for long. Brian said he thought someone was watching us. I acted like I wasn't scared, but I couldn't help but look at the shadows, waiting for someone to come out until we reached the campsite. I thought that would be the end of it. But that night, something unimaginable happened. It was around 1 a.m. in the morning when I opened my eyes, smelling a lot of burnt wood. For a second, I thought our cabin was on fire. I sat up in bed, coughed, and looked around the room. The lights were out, everyone else was asleep, and there was no sign of fire, just the smell choking the air around, getting thicker each second. I got out of bed and walked over to the window to see if something outside was on fire. That's when I saw him. He was only a few inches away from the glass, a tall man, or what once was a man. Half of his face was slick and pink like wax, and the other half was blackened and crumbling. Smoke came out of his head like his hair was still burning, but the worst part was his bulging eyes, which seemed desperate to fall out of their sockets as they watched me with anger. Hatred came off of him like heat. I fell back from the window, screaming at the top of my lungs. All my friends woke up thinking I had a nightmare, but they found me crouched on the floor with my face staring at the window in horror. By the time everyone saw the window, the man had vanished. The smell of smoke lingered, which was enough to keep me awake the entire night. The next morning, I told Lucy and Brian about what I had seen, and I expected them to either laugh or roll their eyes, but they didn't. They just stopped talking.
I thought I smelled something too.
Lucy said in a low voice. We told the nurse at the camp everything. She said it was just first week jitters, or maybe a bad dream, but I wasn't making it up. The face, the smoke, the rage, it was all imprinted in my memory forever. I begged my mom and dad to come get me. They thought I was overreacting, but they came 2 days later and took me home. I haven't been back to Camp Nightshade Grove since, nor do I ever want to. I looked it up online a few months ago. There indeed was a fire, for real. The year was 1953. David Cray is the counselor. During a storm, a lantern fell on him while he was helping to build the cabins. The fire spread quickly. They found him too late, trapped inside what would later be called Ash Cabin. No one ever put it back together. They just let it go to waste. But they should have taken it down. Certain things don't remain concealed, and some spirits would rather not be at peace. They want to get back at you.